Mark Regev is Senior Advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister and a former Israeli Ambassador to the UK. He's on the line now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What went wrong?
So it was a combat zone, and the three hostages were misidentified as a threat to the Israeli force that was there. They were perceived as terrorists, and they were tragically, accidentally shot. And the whole country, first and foremost, the IDF, everyone is extremely sorrowful and hugging the families. This was a tragic accident of war.
What happened does suggest, though, that Israeli soldiers are firing on people who are surrendering, holding up a white flag. And that is against almost everyone's rules of engagement, isn't it?
So we have to carry out a thorough investigation. Could they have seen the white flag? Did they see the white flag? To what extent was the target misidentified? If it was misidentified, why was it misidentified? Without knowing the full details, and that will come out in our investigation, which will be very thorough. But without knowing the full details, I do know that we're talking about a combat zone, that they had received fire from the location where the hostages were prior to the incident and following the incident. This is close quarters combat, which is not easy. Anyone who's been in combat knows that. And did they overreact? Did they just misidentify the people? We don't know yet, but we do know that this is a tragedy. And I think it has to be said about the IDF. When this happened, they were totally transparent. They immediately went to the families of the three hostages and said, this happened. It was our forces. Terrible thing. And they will be very transparent in the investigation, so we get to the bottom of exactly what happened.
The families of the remaining hostages have been holding a press conference today. How can you ensure that more hostages do come home alive? Is it time, as some of the families have asked for more negotiations with Hamas, difficult as that may be politically?
So we've done it before, as you know. We agreed to a humanitarian pause, what was it, 2 weeks ago now? And in the framework of that, we got 105 hostages out, 80 plus Israelis plus foreigners, especially the Thai workers. I think they were the single largest group of foreigners. And that was good. That was 105 people whose lives we saved. Because anyone being held by Hamas, and we know the sort of brutality Hamas is capable of. We know how the people who were released, we heard their stories, how they were abused both physically and psychologically, especially the children. For them, it was very, very difficult. I mean, they held hostage and released a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, and what those young children went through was simply terrible. So we have no illusions about who we're dealing with here.
Sharon Lifshitz, whom we heard earlier, spoke of her mother, though, saying that the IDF's incursions were some of the most frightening aspects of her captivity.
Yes, they said hearing combat near them was very frightening for the hostages, and I have no doubt that that's authentic. And we feel for the families. What can hostage families be going through, knowing that a loved one is stuck in Gaza being held by Hamas? One can only start to think what they're going through. It's hell on earth.
Over the past week, it has sounded very much as though America, be that Biden, Blinken, Kamala Harris, they all want Israel to take much more care than it has been doing, not to cause more civilian casualties in Gaza after the thousands of people who've already been killed.
So, of course, we want that as well, both for moral reasons. We don't want to see innocent people caught up in the crossfire between us and the Hamas terrorists. That's not our goal. And secondly, for strategic reasons, it's also clever counterterrorism. Unfortunately, it's very, very difficult when you have an enemy that doesn't wear a uniform, an enemy that shoots out of civilian structures, that implants its military structure underneath neighborhoods, underneath schools, hospitals, mosques, even UN facilities. This is a brutal and fanatical enemy who cynically, and not just we say so, the British government has said so, the American government has said so, the European Union has said so, and deliberately brutalizes Gazan civilians, using them as a human shield for its war machine.
Mark Regev, we must leave it there. Thank you.